In that horrific attack in Syria, President Trump calling it an affront to humanity, a pair of global crises as the U.S. says time has run out for North Korea. Shakeup. Top Trump aide Steve Bannon suddenly removed from a powerful seat at the table as President Trump, without any evidence, says Susan Rice may have committed a crime. O'Reilly revolt. More advertisers bail as Bill O'Reilly gains a powerful defender. Tornado emergency. Homes demolished as severe storms rumble across the South. Alerts tonight for millions. Amazon refunds. $70 million coming to customers. Who's getting money back? And from center field to center stage, a beloved baseball slugger inspiring America. Nightly News begins right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. Two infamous dictators and both in the crosshairs of President Trump tonight, raising the potential of military responses after acts that are drawing broad concern and condemnation. The first, Syria's leader, Assad. President Trump horrified by the deadly gas attack on civilians, saying it crosses many lines and offering the veiled warning that there may soon be a new U.S. approach to Syria. The president also turning up the heat today on North Korea's Kim Jong-un ahead of a critical meeting tomorrow. As we showed you during our broadcasts from South Korea this week, American armed forces are at a high state of readiness in the face of Kim's most recent threats. We have two reports, starting with the Syrian crisis at NBC's Richard Engel.
A day after an alleged chemical attack by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime, the victims are still struggling to breathe, quivering uncontrollably. Doctors say it's consistent with exposure to a nerve agent like sarin gas. President Trump today said the images of the victims made a deep impression on him.
A chemical attack that was so horrific in Syria against innocent people, including women, small children, and even beautiful little babies. Their deaths was an affront to humanity. These heinous actions by the Assad regime cannot be tolerated.
It's a big reversal. Just 2 days ago, the administration seemed willing to accommodate Assad.
My attitude toward Syria and Assad has changed very much.
And after blaming former President Obama for not taking action after drawing a red line on chemical weapons, today, that changed too.
I now have responsibility, and I will have that responsibility and carry it very proudly.
But confronting Assad means challenging his biggest backer, Russia, which offered today a very different explanation for the victims, saying Assad's troops bombed a terrorist chemical weapons depot. But video obtained by NBC News of what witnesses say is the impact site shows a crater in an open road, no depot nearby. At the UN Security Council, Ambassador Nikki Haley made an emotional address.
Look at those pictures. How many more children have to die before Russia cares?
So will the president respond with military action? He left open that possibility.
I'm not saying I'm doing anything one way or the other.
But there are risks, like Syrian air defenses and possible Russian resistance. President Trump, who came to office with a promise of America first, now seems like he wants to be more involved in world affairs. He's been called an isolationist. He didn't sound like one today. Lester?
Richard Engel in our London newsroom. Richard, thank you. We turn now to the other major global crisis the president addressed today. The latest provocation from North Korea, firing yet another ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan. Containing Kim Jong-un's nuclear weapons program will be front and center when President Trump welcomes the president of China for a high-stakes summit beginning tomorrow at his Florida estate. NBC's Peter Alexander has details.
I will do whatever I have to do.
Tonight, President Trump in a showdown with North Korea and its erratic dictator Kim Jong-un.
We have a big problem. We have somebody that is not doing the right thing. And that's going to be my responsibility.
That responsibility heightened by another North Korean missile test just 24 hours ago, with the senior White House official telling NBC News all options are on the table. But dealing with the rogue nation's growing nuclear threat also falls on China. The president this week warning if the Chinese decide to help, that'll be very good for China. And if they don't, it won't be good for anyone.
China is the only country in the world that has predominant material influence on North Korea in trade, energy, and in coal. If China pulls the plug, then North Korea really has no other options.
The urgent issue certain to dominate tomorrow's high-stakes summit with China's President Xi, the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders with competing agendas.
This is a time when the United States actually defines its relationship with Beijing, maybe not only for coming decades, but for longer than that.
One tool the president's likely to lean into with China, trade, punctuating a heated campaign that used Beijing as a political punching bag.
We can't continue to allow China to rape our country.
The president repeatedly complaining that China's manipulating its currency to make its goods cheaper than American ones. The historic meeting coming amidst renewed scrutiny of Mr. Trump's personal business ties to China, including a Chinese government-owned bank, a tenant in Trump Tower, another a lender on a nearly $1 billion Trump mortgage. The president denies any conflicts of interest because his sons now run the family business.
Tonight, there are also questions about Ivanka Trump's signature line, much of it still made in China, with customs records showing dozens of shipments arriving here since the election, 3 in just the last month. For her part, Ms. Trump says she's no longer involved with her company that's in a trust run by her brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Lester.
Peter Alexander at the White House. Thanks. Now to that sudden power shift at the National Security Council. The president's top aide, Steve Bannon, is losing his seat at the table weeks after his appointment to that position sparked surprise and criticism. And it comes as President Trump kicked up some more dust of his own without any evidence saying the Obama White House's Susan Rice may have committed a crime. NBC's Hallie Jackson has it all covered.
Thank you very much.
The president's inner circle today in a single file line, with a notable exception, Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, who's been at every other press conference so far. A source familiar with the decision says Bannon was working on health care instead, but his conspicuous no-show came just hours after he was ousted from the National Security Council.
Steve Bannon raised eyebrows when he was first on the committee because you don't put political people on a National Security Committee. It's too soon to tell whether he's losing influence, but he's clearly been diminished.
The vice president insisting it's not a demotion.
This is just a natural evolution to ensure the National Security Council is organized in a way that best serves the president.
The move winning bipartisan support.
I'd be very pleased that he's not on the National Security Council. My hope is that he would have no role in government at all.
That's not happening. While Bannon's not on the NSC anymore, he can still attend meetings and still has one of the highest security clearances in the West Wing. A top White House official says Bannon was originally put on the committee as a check against Michael Flynn, the now dismissed national security advisor. Bannon's goal originally, sources say, to break down the Obama-era structure inside that national security team, led at the time by Susan Rice. She's in the president's crosshairs now as he accuses Rice, with no evidence, of committing a crime by requesting the names of people connected to the Trump team be unmasked.
There is simply nothing wrong, unexpected, illegal about doing that. What would be wrong and illegal is if she took that name and then, emailed it to the press.
I leaked nothing to nobody.
The president, yet again, making an unsubstantiated surveillance claim, telling the New York Times it's, quote, one of the big stories of our time. President Trump says he will explain his claim at the right time. Susan Rice declined to comment on what her spokesperson is calling a ludicrous charge. Lester?
Hallie Jackson, thank you. Tonight, there are tornado warnings firing up across the South. Homes demolished as violent storms continue to threaten millions of Americans. In a moment, Al Roker will be here. But first, we get the very latest from NBC's Kerry Sanders on the ground in the storm zone.
A suspected tornado today in Weston, Georgia. Twisted metal scattered across fields. This home collapsed. Wind ripping these buildings apart. No serious injuries reported, but high anxiety.
When we gathered down here, it was really bad because the top on the home house started peeling off. So we knew it was a very serious storm.
Another possible tornado this afternoon in Henry County, Alabama.
All of a sudden it got really, really calm and the trees started kind of spinning and then the rain started pouring.
Across the South today, damaging hail, lightning strikes.
igniting several house fires and widespread flooding. Several feet deep on these streets in Columbia, South Carolina. In some areas, more than 2 inches of rain an hour. In Augusta, Georgia, weather suspending par 3 play at the Masters Golf Tournament for the first time in 53 years. Travel across the country impacted, with more than 500 flights out of Atlanta canceled.
A large, extremely dangerous, and potentially deadly tornado.
In total, at least 61 million people under threat today and into the evening. It's all part of the same weather system that produced this tornado in tiny Goodman, Missouri on Tuesday. Today, they're starting to clean up, while the region braces for another dangerous night.
Tonight, as we look live here in rural Georgia, those who were inside here when the tornado hit say they're just happy to have escaped what were some heart-pounding moments. Adding in today's tornadoes, it's been a busy season so far, more than 350 twisters this year. Lester?
Okay, Kerry Sanders, thanks. And Al Roker is tracking these storms for us. Where's the danger moving forward, Al?
Lester, it's moving into the southeast. We're watching this right now. 20 million people under a tornado watch. And currently, we've got not just a major risk, but we've got a high risk. The greatest threat for storms and tornadoes down through central and southern Georgia into central South Carolina. As this moves east, these tornadoes could be rain-wrapped. It's going to be dark. You won't be able to see them. And so that's going to be the danger. The strong storms move into the northeast, mid-Atlantic states, and New England, bringing with it heavy flooding. In fact, we're talking about 47 million under a flood threat this evening on into tomorrow, Lester.
Al Roker, thanks, Al. Now to the growing backlash against Fox News star Bill O'Reilly. Nearly 36 advertisers have now abandoned O'Reilly's show after the network reportedly paid out millions to settle sexual harassment complaints against him. But today, President Trump himself came to O'Reilly's defense. NBC's Ann Thompson has more.
And the factor begins right now.
As advertisers continue to flee the O'Reilly factor, 35 and counting tonight, Bill O'Reilly gained a powerful defender against accusations the Fox News star sexually harassed female colleagues. Coming to his side, President Donald Trump. In an interview with the New York Times, Trump called O'Reilly a good person. O'Reilly and Fox News settled claims from 5 women for $13 million, according to the Times. But Trump said, "I think he shouldn't have settled," adding, "I don't think Bill did anything wrong." That defense of O'Reilly, who Trump says he knows well, infuriated attorney Lisa Bloom.
I've been flooded with calls, by the way, from Fox News women all week.
Now representing Wendy Walsh, a former Fox contributor who claims O'Reilly harassed her.
And I simply said, "I'm sorry, I can't do that."
Trump has been accused of unwanted sexual conduct in the past and denied it. His comments about an actress during an Access Hollywood taping almost derailed his presidential campaign. Trump apologized, but no new words from O'Reilly. Just his statement earlier this week that his fame made him vulnerable to lawsuits, and he settled to protect his children. A controversy in the headlines during April, what the president has proclaimed as National Sexual Assault and Prevention Month. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
Still ahead tonight, Amazon shoppers, listen up why the online shopping giant is refunding $70 million to parents and how you might be able to get your share of it. Also, bubbling controversy, how Pepsi is responding to the backlash over its latest advertisement. We're back now with a consumer alert. Tens of thousands of Americans are about to get refunds from Amazon. It comes after a long legal battle over young children racking up purchases on their parents' Amazon accounts, parents unaware it was happening. NBC's Tom Costello has details on the settlement.
It's a pretty simple concept. A 4-year-old can't consent to charge a parent's credit card. Yet that's what was happening as young children were playing some popular kids games on Amazon's Kindle, including Pet Shop Story, Ice Age Village, and Tap Zoo. Suddenly, up popped an option for the child to buy more virtual pets, more gold coins or stars, but for real money, anywhere from 99 cents to $99. The kids, of course, quickly agreed.
So we allege that parents were being hit with these charges, many of which were large dollar charges, and large numbers of consumers complained.
I was pretty astonished. I was
quite ill to my stomach.
Julie Camo panicked after then 8-year-old Hannah spent $10,000 buying virtual food for a virtual pet online, putting a family trip to Yellowstone in jeopardy.
We thought we were going to have to change our vacation plans or cancel our vacation plans that we had worked on for months and months of planning.
Thankfully, Amazon refunded the $10,000. Now it's reaching out to tens of thousands of customers, refunding $70 million back to their credit cards. It's also requiring passwords for purchases made in kids' games, and it's encouraging parents to go to the App Store, then go into Settings and in-app purchases to set passwords or PIN codes. The takeaway, paying customers do have to consent before their credit card is charged. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
We're back in a moment with a fighter jet going down in flames. The pilot forced to make a split-second decision.
Thank God he's okay.
A scare in the skies over Maryland today as a fighter jet went down just a few miles from the U.S. Capitol. The pilot on an Air National Guard training mission ejected safely but was injured, parachuting to the ground as the F-16 crashed into a wooded area southwest of Joint Base Andrews. Those injuries, we're told, thankfully were not life-threatening. Now to the soda ad that's sparking a big backlash on social media. Pepsi has now pulled the commercials, which features a reality TV star, after critics claimed it was in bad taste and trivialized the Black Lives Matter movement. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez explains.
Tonight, Pepsi is in damage control after being accused of exploiting racial protests to sell soda. The 2.5-minute ad released Tuesday on YouTube features model and reality TV star Kendall Jenner happily joining a group of young protesters. It never specifically references the Black Lives Matter movement, but many critics noted the stark contrast between the image of Jenner handing a soft drink to an officer and pictures like this one of riot police detaining a woman in Baton Rouge last summer.
This ad trivializes the urgency of the issues, and it diminishes the seriousness and the gravity of why we got into the street in the first place.
On social media, the video quickly drew widespread anger and ridicule. Even Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, Bernice, sarcastically tweeted, if only her father had known about the power of Pepsi.
I've never seen an ad get this negative response so quickly, and I think that it will make Pepsi reevaluate what they're doing with their brand.
Today, Pepsi yanked the ad, saying the company was trying to project a global message of unity, peace, and understanding. Clearly, we missed the mark, and we apologize. Decades ago, this iconic Coke commercial during the Flower Power movement struck the right tone at the right time. As Pepsi found out, times have changed. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Miami.
When we come back here tonight, the baseball superstar using his life's other passion to connect with kids. Inspiring America is next.
NBC Nightly News is brought to you by Pacific Life, helping generations of families achieve long-term financial security for over 145 years.
Finally tonight, with baseball season in full swing, a story about a man of many talents. Not only does he have 4 World Series championships to his name, he's also a Latin Grammy-nominated recording artist. And now he's using his love of music to go to bat for school kids. NBC's Rahema Ellis has more in our Inspiring America report.
Hey, kids! He's best known as a champion baseball player, but these kids are cheering for the other side of Bernie Williams. What came first, your love of baseball or your love of music?
They both came around the same time in my life.
The former New York Yankee and Latin Grammy-nominated guitarist grew up playing baseball and attending a performing arts school. He's now joined another team called Turnaround Arts that gives students something his mother made sure he had.
She said, well, you have to be a well-rounded individual. In order for you to do that, you need to be exposed to arts, music, and sports.
Funded through a grant from the Kennedy Center, the program allows schools to mix the arts into all academic subjects, acting out scenes in science or drawing in history. And it's working. In 68 schools nationwide with Turnaround Arts programs, math scores are up by more than 22%, reading by more than 12%.
When you bring the arts into school, schools go from gray to color. parents become more engaged, attendance starts to go up.
This year, Joshua went from chronically tardy to honor roll.
You have to be good to be in band or they're not going to be able to come down and practice.
A lot of them will have enough talent to become musicians and artists, but the ones that don't will have that experience to lead them into whatever they decide to do.
From center field to classroom. Now hitting home runs with kids. Rahima Ellis, NBC News, Bridgeport, Connecticut.
That's going to do it for us on a Wednesday night. I'm Lester Holt. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching and good night.
More Americans watch NBC News than any